A person reported to be a humble anonymous donor has given $500,000 to the University of Otago's National Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies. The money was given to ensure the future of the centre. Director Professor Kevin Clements is here with his reaction and to explain what happens next. Good evening.
Good evening, Sarah.
It's a remarkable donation. How did this come about?
It's a pretty remarkable donation. Well, this person and the Aotearoa New Zealand Peace and Conflict Studies Trust, who've given us money in the past, asked us what my 5-year vision was, and I said I'd like to have 6 people in place, with permanent positions by 2020 or 2019, and this person said, "How do we help you do that?"
Now, this donor wants to remain anonymous, but what can you tell us about him and his motivations?
Well, he's a very successful Auckland businessman who's made a lot of money, with the prosperity of Auckland. And he's also a very committed pacifist who wants to ensure that the world is left in a more peaceful position than it was when he first came on the scene. He's very dedicated to education and to enabling people to learn how to be more peaceable, and has really kind of worked throughout his entire life to make sure that we become much more kind of sensitive and empathetic towards others. He's a lay Franciscan.
Now, for viewers who may not be aware, tell us what the centre does.
The centre is a postgraduate theory, research and practice program, which means that we not only are interested in learning about the world and how it works, but we're also interested in changing it. So we have a normative dimension to our work. That means that we are interested not only in kind of good theory, but in good practice. And so we are developing, in collaboration with a number of different groups in Dunedin, for example, a community mediation program. We have students that are working in all sorts of interesting parts of the world, like Rwanda and the Solomons and Timor-Leste. Some have been working in Palestine as well, trying to kind of figure out how they can utilize their peace and conflict studies theory to do good in the world, basically.
Now, the 20th century you've described this week as a century of slaughter. Now, realistically, what hope does mankind have of turning that around?
Well, the 20th century was certainly a kind of a century of slaughter. It was one of the most barbaric and horrific centuries in terms of battle deaths and casualties. But the good news is that, since the 1990s in particular, we've had a period of very long peace in terms of wars between nations. And the numbers of civil wars have dramatically declined. So we can say that there are some very positive signs out there. One not so positive sign is the kind of rumors of war and threats of war around Syria, but that's a blip on the horizon.
How could that be stopped, do you think?
Well, first of all, I think that we need I think first of all we need to acknowledge that the use of chemical weapons anywhere is completely barbaric and unacceptable, and there's indeed a chemical weapons convention to stop that. Secondly, it seems to me that before we send in the troops with all kinds of uncertain consequences, we need to ask ourselves whether or not this is going to do more harm than good. And if we kind of calculate that it will, then we might need to think about alternatives. And thirdly, I think we need to really exhaust negotiated solutions before we send in Marines or kind of start sending off cruise missiles. This is a kind of extremely volatile part of the world. If we move in there with an armed intervention, I think that the kind of potential catastrophe is quite high.
Professor Kevin Clements, Director of the National Centre for Peace and Conflict Studies at the University of Otago, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you.